Hello, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jeff Turner. Today we're exploring what it really means to live with your inner critic instead of fighting it. Before I ever worked in peer support or made mental wellness content like this, my journey started with trying to understand my inner critic. I remember sitting at my computer, typing something into the internet like, how do I stop thinking so much, trying to make sense of what was going on in my head. At the time, I felt like my thoughts were holding me back from having any hope of getting better. But over the years, I learned a few tools and practices, and it actually helped me manage the spiral. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'll do a brief overview of the science of what's called chatter, why your inner voice matters, the power of rituals, and a simple 3-step process that I use and hopefully you can use to build your own rituals. So let's jump in. A long time ago, I was doing some research into my own inner voice, and I came across a video talk by Ethan Kross. He's the psychologist who wrote the book called Chatter, The Voice in Our Head, Why It Matters, and How to Harness It. And in it, he says, I'm just going to read the quote right from the script so I don't flub it. We spend between 1/3 and 1/2 of our waking hours not living in the present. And what are we doing during that time? We're talking to ourselves. And we assume this constant low-grade narrator in our head is supposed to help us in some way, with things like planning, rehearsing conversations, making decisions, and generally remembering who we are. But there's another side to it, and this is what Kross calls chatter. Again, I'm just gonna read the quote right off the script so I don't flub it. Chatter refers to the dark side of our inner voice. When we turn our attention inward to make sense of our problems, we don't end up finding solutions. We end up ruminating, worrying, and catastrophizing. And the thing about chatter is it doesn't always just stay in our head. It spills out into everything else. So why does our inner voice matter? Well, as I mentioned before, chatter doesn't just stay in our heads, it spills out into everything else. It's not just the emotional toll that chatter has on us, but it's also a physical one. Kross explains that chatter keeps our stress response switched on, even long after the stressful moment has passed. And when stress stays activated like that day after day, it's been linked to things like inflammation, heart issues, even an increased risk of certain diseases. And it's not just about the body either, it's about connection as well. When you're stuck in chatter, you're not fully there with the people that are in front of you. This can pose a problem if you're someone who works in the mental health field or is supporting others. Chatter makes it easier to get distracted. You might have a shorter temper. You might miss cues, miss moments, miss the tiny openings that could have actually helped us feel grounded again. And at a certain point, especially if you're like me, the question becomes, so what do we do about it? And this brings me to the surprising power of rituals. This is where the science gets interesting and hopefully a little hopeful. Kross explains that one of the most effective ways to manage chatter is something that most of us are already doing without even thinking about it, and that's creating small rituals. And Kross describes rituals as an ordered sequence of behaviors you perform the same way each time. And that structure gives you a sense of order and control. Take Rafael Nadal, for example, arguably one of the best tennis players ever to live. If you haven't heard his name, just give him a Google search. But during every break in a tennis match, he drinks from 2 water bottles in the same order and places them at the exact same diagonal. It's not just a superstition, it's a coping tool, a way to steady himself so his mind doesn't spiral. Even something seemingly so small of a ritual, it gives us structure, and structure gives us safety, especially when our thoughts don't always feel safe. So, how do you build a ritual? I'm going to explain how I build rituals and where the origin of my rituals come from. If you've ever read a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, you might already know about a concept of something called habit stacking. Habit stacking is the simple idea where you take something you already do automatically and you stack a new habit or ritual right after it. And for me, it's a beautiful way that I can manage my chatter. Here's the simple step-by-step way that I use to build this grounding ritual. So step 1, I always try to identify the activating moment. When does my chatter get the loudest? Is it right after checking an email, right before a work call? First thing in the morning is a big time for me when I notice chatter just is uncontrollable. I feel as though for me, just naming or recognizing the chatter, it's almost half the work done right there. And if you're like me and you find catching these moments in the moment hard, try a daily or even like a weekly check-in. What I do is I sit down with my journal and I process my day, going through and exploring the activating moments. I usually do this at night before bed. I just find it's a great way to get the things that are in my head out onto the paper, have a recognizing moment, and then in the morning when I go back and I look, I can then prepare or set up my day, which is what I'll get into with step 2. Step 2 is to pick a grounding action. So choose something simple and repeatable, something that you can do anywhere. This can be something like box breathing. Box breathing is you breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you exhale for 4, you hold for 4, repeat. You can do, some people use grounding affirmations or statements like this isn't permanent and I am safe. You can place your hand on your chest, taking slow breaths, just bringing your awareness back to your breathing, or writing a single sentence in a journal or on a napkin or something like that. And these obviously don't solve everything. They're not a cure, but they do interrupt the spiral. And sometimes that's all you need. It's also at this point that I'd like to remind you that I'm not a psychologist or a doctor. I don't have any medical authority. So explore these grounding things as safely as you can, whatever that looks like to you. Personally, finding what worked and what works for me, it took a while. And things for me, the more that I do them, the more I notice that they change over time. Rather, the individual grounding exercise will change completely, or changing the way that I do it, where I do it, and how I do it. Just a little food for thought. So keep exploring, remain patient, and if you need, seek professional help. Which brings me to step 3, you're gonna stack it as part of your routine or with your routine. So you're gonna try to pair your grounding action with a habit that you already do. So after I make my coffee, I'll start journaling. Or after brushing my teeth, I'll repeat an affirmation in the mirror. Something that really helped me get into this habit was I would leave my journal on my pillow every morning. So that way, when I came back to bed at night, I would have to physically remove the journal in order to get into bed. And it was this little tiny trigger that just got me into journaling more consistently, especially at night. And here are 2 bonus tips that really helped me, especially when I was getting started. But number 1, keep it simple. You don't have to build an hour-long, regimented, scheduled routine. I tried this. It was really complicated. And even though I could kind of build momentum for a short amount of time, it never really lasted. The second tip would be repeat it daily. Just getting into the habit, even small things. I remember placing the journal onto my pillow, and even when I would get it, I would just write down like 3 things I was grateful for, or 1 word, 1 emotion to describe how my day went. And that was enough to get me started. So that brings us to the end of the video. I hope it helped. I hope you find value in this. And if there's anything that I missed or any ritual that you do that I left out, just let me know. You never know, it might help somebody else who's reading the comment. Thank you so much for watching. And if you want more videos on peer support or mental wellness tools, just click one of the boxes that pop up onto the screen. I'm Jeff Turner. Remember to take care of yourself, however that looks to you, and we'll see you in the next video.